Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. Before I start talking about this movie, which I'm really excited to talk about, I love the Raggedy Ann and Andy movie. I just want to give some important information involving my recording and the microphone and stuff. I don't know what's up with my microphone. It's suddenly been like it happened within, I think, the past month or so. The part where it connects from the cord, the one that plugs into the USB and then into the microphone itself, it's like breaking right at the top, and it's been getting worse and worse. I'm not really sure why it's doing this. I don't handle it weirdly or anything. I don't ever really hold it by the cord. I just hold it, when I'm talking, by the microphone part of it. It used to have a little stands thing, and it was kind of annoying for me to put in, and it's just easier for me to hold the microphone with my hand, especially because sometimes I'm playing something on a TV and I'm not facing the table, and I hold it close to my mouth so you can hear me and everything. But I mean, it is a $30 microphone, so it's not it's decent, but not super duper amazing. And I have been using it for 4 years now, actually, because I had my other channel for 3 years, and then this one I've had for a year now. I think I've and the reason I even got this microphone in the first place was I was originally using my headset that I would use to chat with my friends on Discord, and people were complaining my voice sounded kind of weird. Not my voice itself, but through the microphone. And then one of the subscribers had mentioned hey, you can get a microphone for $30 on Amazon that'll work a lot better, and that was super helpful. That's the best advice anyone had given me with this, and I bought it and I've been using it, and it's been completely fine. But yeah, it's tearing, and it's getting kind of bad. I think the audio is still working, at least right now, which is good, so I can still keep recording for a little bit. I mean, I'm going to use it until it just either fully breaks or stops working. I am currently looking at Amazon for microphones. I'm trying to decide if I want the same exact kind that I've been using. I can even get it in the same color too. Because this microphone, it's been working fine. I've heard myself sometimes when I occasionally listen through on the videos, and I think my audio sounds fine to me. I don't know how it is for you, but there's another one I'm thinking of getting where it has a wire, but it's not connected directly to the microphone. I think it's connected to the back, and it has an easier little stand thing, so I could just put it on a table. It's a similar price, but looks a little bit maybe better quality, so I might try that. Looks like the cord connects from somewhere else, so it should hopefully fix this issue. Oh, hold on a second. But I just wanted to give a heads up about that. And the reason I hadn't been looking for a mic sooner, even though I've noticed it's been breaking, I've been pre-recording so much. I have the next several months recorded already, and I've been even recording into 2027. In terms of 2026, I have June, July, I think also August. So I have plenty of time if I want to do a bit more research. I'm just mentioning about this. I also sometimes post my videos out of order and stuff of when I'm recording, especially when it comes to the movie reviews. So if there's suddenly randomly a video where the microphone sounds different and then it goes back to sounding the way it always was, it just means there's some newer videos where I'm using whatever the newer microphone would be. I mean, I might just also go with the same exact kind, and then there shouldn't be any difference at all. I didn't think I'd have to replace this microphone, but I mean, lasting for 4 years, that's not too bad. But yeah, I have to decide, do I want one that's easy to just put on the table, or do I want one where I can pull it out and I can, because if I hold it with my hand, that helps, because I've never really been allowed speaker or anything, even on here, unless I get really surprised by something or whatever. I know my voice can be a bit quieter, but that's why I just have to hold all my microphones just kind of close to me. I feel if I had it on the table like this, I have to try to talk louder, and I feel I'm actually less focused than anything. I just feel comfortable talking at the I always have like the volume that I speak in. Anyway, let's talk about Raggedy Ann. In terms of when I'm posting that, I mean, I recorded a bunch of Tomodachi Life stuff, but I'm going to post this, I think, around the same time as the Poggedy and Me being made. That's kind of the fun thing with certain characters I'm making in Tomodachi Life. It not only means I get the excuse to rewatch their movies for research so I can get their personalities and especially the voices more accurate, but also means I get to rewatch movies and things I really like, and then I get to talk about them on here. The Raggedy Ann movie, I originally watched it like several years ago. I didn't really remember everything from it. I think I only found out about it because it was like when it was suddenly just becoming more known and like popular for whatever reason. Like I stumbled on a video about it on YouTube. It wasn't even one about like the plot. It was one of those of like, oh, only this specific character or whatever. And I was like, this sounds cool. And I watched it, and the animation is so good. Honestly, I mean, Richard Williams, his animation stuff is fantastic. I even bought, there's an animation book that he has. I bought it when I was on vacation recently. What's usually referred to as the Animator's Bible. I gotta check that out at some point, but nice to have that. But I've seen a couple of his movies. This one, I know of the work he did for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and then there's The Thief and the Cobbler, which is like his magnum opus. And the animation, of course, in this movie is amazing, but I feel like the animation in The Thief and the Cobbler it's just like a little bit more impressive for me. I'd love to talk about that one at some point too. I never actually got to make a video on it because at the time I watched it, that was back when I had my other channel, and I had my double jaw surgery, so I watched the movie, but I wasn't allowed to like really speak much or anything, so I never got the chance to make a video on that. I'd love to rewatch it again. And with Raggedy Ann, I had made a video about it on my other channel before the old one, and that was just like my first ever reactions, but it's kind of nice to like watch it again, and I want to just talk about it anyway. There's actually a lot that I had forgotten about it because this has kind of felt it's kind of become like a comfort movie for me, especially like after I'd originally watched it. Sometimes I would just watch like little like certain scenes and stuff from the movie. Like my favorite parts of it are actually the beginning, when the characters are in the toy room and stuff. That scene goes like the beginning of like setting everything up kind of goes on for like a long time. There's like several songs within there and stuff, but it's just very comforting. And once it gets like maybe around like halfway through the movie and stuff, when they start meeting a bunch of really weird characters and the adventure gets truly bizarre, I kind of like mentally check out a bit. I just feel like the songs aren't really as good, and I become like their adventure gets more interesting, but at the same time, and has more of like an Alice in Wonderland sort of feel to it, of like wandering around and meeting all these kooky characters. But I just become kind of less interested, where I straight up forgot like the climax and a lot of the characters in like the second half. So it was kind of nice for that reason as well to rewatch the movie. But some of my notes are also just things I was like impressed by animation wise or everything. It's still like details about this movie I never really notice or anything, or just because I know the ending of it, of like how the movie looks from like a human perspective with the human characters. I was kind of keeping that in mind more as the characters are going on their adventure through all these weird places or whatever, and I'm thinking, how real are they and stuff. But let me just kind of go through my notes. I think Marcella's house is a cool location. They don't spend a lot of time there except for in the playroom, and then they go outside, and they're in like her front yard and stuff the whole time. But it kind of looks like because the characters are small, they're traveling more than further than they actually are. I like the opening where it's Marcella going all the way up to her room. I just liked looking around the house and stuff. I don't know if it was like a trend for like 70s wallpaper or something, but the wallpaper, not in Marcella's room, but like the hallway to like get up there and everything, has all these like birds and leaves. It felt like I was inside of like a nature book or something. I just really liked the design of that. And then one of my favorite, hold on a minute. one of my favorite things about this movie is whenever there's the transitions between the real world version of the toys and their animated forms. The real versions of the toys are so cute, honestly. Like, I'm assuming the Raggedy Ann is a real toy, so her and her brother, I'm assuming those dolls are just like the ones used in the movie, probably any that you can get in this. But then the toys of all the other characters, they're so specific, that like the playroom toys and everything, that I feel like they're probably not, I mean, they have the design where they look like they could be like really older toys that you could just buy. Like, I assumed Babette was real, for example, but I kind of assumed like a lot of them were probably like made for the movie. I don't know, haven't done the research for that, but I thought they have like such specific designs. But all of the real versions of the toys, they look so cute, especially like the camel later on as well. And there's always this kind of, I guess, nostalgic, very gentle sounding music when it's like the real world segments of like Marcella with the toys. There's one part later in the movie when Marcella meets Babette for the first time, and I remember I saw just that like scene. That was like, I think, the first scene I'd seen that wasn't part of like a compilation or anything from the movie, and I didn't even realize that it was from a movie. I thought it was like a toy commercial or something, because it just had that vibe to it of like the lighting and the very gentle music in the background and Marcella talking to Raggedy Ann and stuff. It just kind of gave that feel, but no, it's like a full scene in the movie. But I really like those parts too. There's a lot of just really gentle, nice sounding like background, like instrumental music throughout this movie. But mostly in these like real world segments and stuff that just help make it feel more cozy, honestly. And then it goes to the opening credits, and I like what I don't notice it for like every animated movie, but I notice it sometimes for like older ones like this, which I think is really cool, especially the ones where the animation, you're looking at it and you're just like, holy shit, where they'll have the animators listing the animator for every individual character. Like, every character gets an animator rather than like, oh, this is like the list of all the animators. And I appreciate for movies like this, or like Cats Don't Dance, for example, where the animators are listed before the voice actors. I mean, the voice actors are important too, but it's kind of interesting with both those movies. Like you see the start or an end of a movie where that happens, and like, you're watching like a really, really well animated movie and everything. I mean, I'm not saying like movies that don't have that aren't as good, but like almost kind of reassures you of the quality in a way, and looking at the characters and stuff. Oh yeah, I mentioned about Cats Don't Dance. You're going to get a video from that. I watched it like a couple months ago, but you're gonna get a video on that from me, I think in like late July. But I'm excited for when that gets posted, because that was such a good movie. I almost actually want to watch it again. But that was just the other example that popped into my head. I also like how interactive the opening credits are as well. They're like very stylized, of like the letters looking like rags and stuff, or the characters' faces sometimes poking out, like replacing like O's and A's and things. I thought it just looked very charming to it, and it has the song like Ragdolly playing at first. That was nice. And then you get to see the characters animated for the first time, but just even from that first transition where Raggedy Ann goes from like a real doll to like her animated form, it's so smooth that there's barely a change. Like, you can tell obviously she's going from like a real physical object to an animated form, but the art style mimicking like how the actual doll looks and just how detailed it is and everything, like they capture her so well in that part. It's just like a very easy transition and everything. That is so like cool, honestly. I mean, she does become a bit like stylized, and also I think a little bit smaller at times as well, like her eyes, being able to move around and stuff. but just the fact that she's like a close replica and everything is great. And there's like a couple of other transitions as well where you see it with other characters where they go from real to animated. I just think that's so cool, honestly. I also want to say the voice acting for this movie is really good too. Like Didi Khan, this wasn't like the first movie I'd ever like seen or heard her in. I think it was probably watching Grease, you know, where she plays Frenchie. I've never actually seen a movie where she plays anyone that's like mean or anything. I know I haven't seen like everything she's ever been in, but like between like this and Grease and there's a Thomas the Tank Engine movie that I'd watched where she plays a character in that, which I think I also have a review of at some point. I've made so many movie reviews in this channel that are just sitting in the like scheduled part of YouTube. But between all of those, she seems to play a lot of like really like friendly, like kind characters and stuff, and she's so good at that too. But like, I mean, her voice doesn't seem changed like too much as Anne. I think a little bit. There's just something about it. Compared to when I'm thinking of like, I don't know how she sounds as like Frenchie in Grease, for example. Her voice seems like a little bit softer here, almost a little more nasally, almost a little like when you sound like when you're sick. Maybe she was recording the lines, I don't know. But her voice just sounds kind of soothing in general, but I think especially as this character. I mean, I've never really seen any other Raggedy Ann stuff. There was like an animation for I saw that was, I think, from like 1941 though. I don't remember if Raggedy Ann talked, but in my mind this is just the voice that pops into my head when I think of Raggedy Ann as a character anyway. And then Mark Baker as Andy, I've been trying to find, well, not like now, but like when I watched the movie, other stuff that he's been in, because like I could tell from the vocals, because like both of them get to sing and stuff, that like he really knows how to like sing and everything. And I'm like, I don't mean like individual songs, but maybe just his voice seems to me like somebody that would be doing like, I don't know, musical theater or something. But like VA wise, he brings so much life to like Andy as a character of this like sassy little doll that's like kind of grumpy. But it's in a way where it's like you can see how much he really cares about his sister, and he doesn't really care about the other toys as much, but like doesn't really like bully them either. They're just kind of like there. But I really love both of those two. You know, they're the main characters and everything. I think the voice acting for them throughout the movie is just like really well done. Let me get back to my notes. And then I like the designs for all of Marcella's toys. I don't know if they're like based on specific toys in real life and stuff. Like the Susie pincushion one is basically like a giant pincushion, but then there's another one that is able to, he has like the little bowler hat and he pulls out tools and stuff and has like 4 different arms. Like what is he supposed to be exactly? And then there's the Penny twins. I don't really like the Penny twins, but it's only not like design wise or anything. They're like made out of wood, which I think is kind of cool. But it's just that they don't really feel like characters as much as the other like playroom toys. They just kind of sing all their dialogue, but whenever they sing they do like a little dance or something, but it's always like the same exact dance, and they have this little melody that plays along with them and stuff. There's like one part like towards the end when everyone sings and they get a line and they get to actually be the two of them. I don't know what they're like, if they have individual names, like actually part of the song, and they sound nice there, but their voices seem like really high pitched, where it just comes off as like a little irritating to me. I don't know. I was fine with like the rest of the toys though. I think they all just have cool designs of being very different like type of toys. One of them is like literally like a little trash cloth thing that's like kind of sad all the time. There's some that are made of wood. There's some like that are like cloth, and then Babette later is like a not like porcelain doll, but more the kind that reminds me of whatever material it is for like American Girl dolls type of things, compared to like Anne being a cloth doll. I like the variety of toys. I think that's cool, but they also just seem like older toys that it makes me wonder like what time period. I mean, the movie doesn't seem like it takes place like really old or anything. Like, it looks like from the outside and everything, seeing Marcella, like it is like, yeah, the 70s and stuff, but the toys seem so old. I'm like, what are they, like based on and stuff. And then you get your first song. Raggedy Ann has this really just adorable little song about like how she sees the world, because she's one of the only toys that like gets to actually go outside. I like the detail. I noticed this time when she's during her little song, and there's a part when she's looking at a mirror, and I looked at her reflection, and her reflection actually kind of looks like a reflection with like the lighting in the room and stuff, where the colors are a little bit more like darker and muted, because it's a reflection, like the sun's not shining there at that point, rather than sometimes with animated stuff there's like a reflection. I don't mean like a reflection in water, but like, because that looks different too, but like a reflection in glass, or sometimes a character like color wise and everything looks like exactly the same in their reflection, by like this, there's this little detail of like where the light is shining, so her reflection would look like a little bit different. And then the sun is interesting too, because the sun is like solid. I mean, eventually it does like move its eyes and blink and stuff, but it almost looks like it's like edited into the window, or like everything else is drawn around the sun, and that's like the one part of the movie that kind of looks like that. I think it's kind of interesting. And then in terms of the Poggy and where I got that inspiration from, it's 8 minutes and 2 seconds into the movie. I made sure to write that down. And it's kind of a crazy shot too. Like, Anne tosses her head up, and it looks like there's like actual light inside her eyes. It's kind of interesting how sometimes light is used in this movie, like for stars or for the light in Anne's eyes in that one scene, where it doesn't look like, oh, it's like drawn. It looks like an actual light is like shining. It's kind of cool but kind of weird. But yeah, that's where the Poggedy Ann, because her mouth looks like the Pog mouth. I even I guess I liked it so much I forgot about it, that I have this little container thing where I keep my microphone and some of my controllers for Steam and stuff, and on the front of it I tried painting that shot of Anne, even the mouth and everything. I completely forgot that, like, when I watched this movie, I was like, for the first time, I was so into it. I was doing all these drawings and stuff. Oh man, I haven't seen it in like years. But yeah, that's the inspiration for the Poggedy Ann me, and why that me looks like that. I don't know if I would make a second me that would just be like regular Raggedy Ann, but the Poggedy Ann me was just so funny to me from like the 3DS game that I'm just gonna keep her the way she is. But yeah, that's why she's named like that and everything. She was even like an emote that I had on Discord with like some of my friends and stuff, because they also got really into that. And then you get introduced to Andy, and I like that from the minute he appears, he's just a really grumpy character. And it's not just because when he's introduced, he's like under a giant heavy box and he's like stuck there. I mean, bad things do kind of happen to him and stuff, more so than they do to Anne, and I find that interesting. Like, Anne seems like the only one that gets to go outside because she's like Marcella's favorite, and Andy is under a box when he's introduced. And there's a part later on when the characters are laying outside in their like real world forms, and Andy's under a little bit of leaves, and Marcella is addressing all the characters and talking to them. She doesn't say anything for Andy, she just like picks him up. There's a part later on before the song Candy Hearts and Paper Flowers where Andy mentions about how he was tossed into the wash with like starch and he couldn't move for weeks. So it's like all of these just bad things keep happening to him. No wonder he hates it there. I mean, maybe it also has to do with the whole thing of like, you know, he hates being a girl's toy, but I mean, he is surrounded by all of these like, well, not all the characters are like dolls too, and some of the toys are male, but doesn't like being a girl's toy. But yeah, he's like such a funny character to me, especially his dialogue at the beginning of the movie and stuff. I still love the line and like the line delivery of the "I'm getting so sick and tired of all the dumb things that go on around here." I'm like, that's so real. But it's funny to me, he's like so confident when they're in the toy room, and him being like tough and terrific and whatever, his words not mine, and then as soon as they leave the toy room, he doesn't like become a coward or anything. It's more so of like all of that confidence is sort of, I don't know, gone. It's like he's kind of putting on a show in a sense, and then just kind of goes to his normal self as the adventure goes on. I mean, you even see in the movie that like Anne is actually seems to be a bit more brave, to the point where like when characters they run into people that cause them trouble, and Anne is the one they're always addressing, and they don't ever like really acknowledge Andy or anything. Like when the characters fall out a window later, Andy is kind of scared, and Anne just jumps out without hesitating or anything. She tries to fight a taffy monster later on and stuff, and like stands up to people. She is fearless, and Andy is a little bit cautious. But yeah, the song "No Girl's Toy" there's actually, and it's delightful to say this, several times in the movie where you're watching and you're like, this is just an animation flex. There's a part later in the movie with a character that's called the Greedy that is like the most like animation flex, just how good it looks and everything, kind of moment or scene or whatever. Like the best example of that from this movie specifically later on, but I think "No Girl's Toy" is definitely up there. Which Andy, just the way he moves around in that scene, and the two rag dolls especially throughout the movie, but like but mostly like Andy to me in "No Girl's Toy," because he's a character that doesn't have any bones, and like that's also what he's singing about and stuff. Like he's able to move around because he's like sentient and stuff, but you can wiggle him around all over the place and he doesn't break or anything. So it's just really cool watching how his body contorts, it like twists and bends, and he spins around, he's doing like flips and shit. And I just think that's really fun to watch, and it's so fluid. That's the best part about the animation in this movie. It's like, damn. But yeah, like animation wise, that song's really fun to watch, but also just vocally as well. Really anytime Andy sings, it's great, honestly. Let me see what else. And then something I didn't notice the first time I watched is that there's all of these giant blocks, like the blocks that have letters on them, in the background, and they spell out things. I think I caught the first time that there was one that spells girls, but I didn't notice the other ones. There's other ones that spell no. There's one that spells boys, where it's like made out of multiple, like each block has like an individual letter or the word no or something, but it's like more the way they're placed. I think there's another one that spells Andy, but the blocks when they pop up on screen, you know, because they're just in the background, Andy's not moving them or anything, it lines up with whatever part of the song he's on, and I just think that's a fun detail. There's just like stuff like that sometimes I've never noticed, and just even the positioning of, or not positioning, but like the size difference of things compared to when it's the segments with Marcella and the toys, like the room is real and stuff, compared to when it's animated, I also find really interesting, because like the dollhouse to the toys that Babette is in is really big, but it's big in the real world too. Like it's the same size as Marcella, and she's like 7. And it's interesting because like Babette is like a really big like real life doll and everything, but then and Marcella places her, like she lifts the lid in the dollhouse and then places Babette in there. Like Babette, you know, there's like a little balcony, for example, she would not be able to stand on it. She's large enough where the the dollhouse is more of like an actual bed than being used as like an actual dollhouse. But then once Babette is animated, she's still bigger than like Raggedy Ann and Andy. Like you can see like the animated sizes of everything for the most part on the poster, where she's like as tall as the camel. But yeah, Babette shrinks down like a ton once she's animated. Or like the camel too. The camel is big enough where Raggedy Ann and Andy can ride him later on in the movie. But then when Marcella picks him up at the end, which I'd forgotten about, he's actually really large. I actually love the way that the real toy version of him looks. He's really cute. And the way his head kind of wobbles around because he doesn't have the sticks, and him being like an old toy and stuff. And then I was thinking about how like Raggedy Ann is the one that's like, yeah, I have to go and save Babette because she ends up getting kidnapped. That's like finally when the plot ends up starting. But then I noticed when Marcella's talking to the toys before she ends up leaving and the adventure starts and stuff, she tells Raggedy Ann, she's like, you take care of Babette, so it's like no wonder Anne has to go rescue her and stuff. And then Babette ends up getting a song. I'm kind of whatever on her song, but I do like that Babette isn't just like a character that ends up getting kidnapped. She has like her own goals and stuff of that she wants to go back to France, and she even ends up trying to do that when the characters get to see her again towards like the end of the movie. I think she's still one of the most like French, like the way she sounds and stuff, like animated characters I've ever seen. It's kind of funny to me, something about that. But then you get the song Ragdolly, and ever since I watched, I want to just mention about this in case it's something you guys also know about, because it's like just as fun in like a different way than the movie. There is a play, I believe from the 80s? I'm not sure. There's a Raggedy Ann play. It's called Ragdolly. It was like lost media for years, but I guess somebody found it and now it's watchable, and I watched it. I watched it sometime after watching the movie, actually, and they're both really good. But the musical, it's the play, well, it is a musical, they sing and stuff. It's a lot darker than the movie, because the movie is just like, it's kind of like Toy Story in a sense of like the toys are going on an adventure and stuff, and there's not much human involvement. But then the plot of the musical is that the toys are going on and like kind of come to life, and they go on an adventure with Marcella, which sounds really fun, except that Marcella is dying and they're going to the real world. And it is kind of cool that like the toys are played by adults, and they kind of have more different dynamics. Raggedy Ann becomes almost like a sort of mother figure in a sense to Marcella, but her personality is also a lot different, where she's kind of more spunky and a bit more kind of energetic and even a little sarcastic too. I love both versions of Raggedy Ann in both like this and the musical, but the song Ragdolly is like a really important song, and more so for the musical, but you know, also with this one as well. I just find it really interesting because that's the song that is like kind of the most different between the two, because like, you know, like I said, the musical is that they're trying to save Marcella's life, and it's at a point in the story, I think like the middle of the story, where Raggedy Ann, you know, she isn't sure if she's going to be able to save Marcella and feels like she might just be a bit over her head. Like she's like, yeah, I am, you know, just a ragdolly. What am I going to do? But then in this one with Ragdolly, the song, it's like, it's the beginning of the movie, and it's Raggedy Ann introducing herself to Babette. And it's more of like, she's very humble and just kind of welcoming her to the toy room, and it's more of like a really sweet song. And I just find that really interesting because from what I can remember, with the song used in both the movie and the musical, I think the lyrics are unchanged, so it's like the same lyrics, but within the context and how they're being sung, where like Ragdolly in the musical is like kind of a bit of a sad but sort of a bit triumphant song, but then here it's just like very chill, very pleasant. I really like that when you can have a song where it's like the same lyrics but has like a completely different meaning depending on the context of it being used. I don't really have any other comparisons to the musical, other than I'm going to say you should watch it. It's I mean, it is a bit darker, but I also find it really interesting, and it has like different songs in the movie. It's not like an adaptation of it or anything, but a lot of the songs are really good and everything. I think I actually like some of the songs even better than, because the thing with this movie is that there's a lot of really good songs, like Candy Hearts and Paper Flowers is one of my favorites. I'll be talking about that in a minute. But it actually almost feels like there's too many songs. I feel like the songs in like the first half of the movie are pretty good, but I think once it gets past like the Greedy's song and stuff, then I feel like the songs kind of go downhill, and then it just feels kind of like there's too many, and it's like every character ends up getting a song, and they're kind of just not really as memorable to me. Like the pirate captain, he gets a song when he wants to like kidnap Babette and leave his snow globe, and Babette gets a song about wanting to go to France. I think it's also because they're a lot shorter compared to some of the ones that, like, I don't know, Raggedy and Andy get, where they're like full length songs and everything. And I love the part when Anne and Andy, they end up starting their adventure finally. It like takes a while into the movie to set it up, and so it's like, even though I love the scenes in the playroom, they just feel really sweet and everything. At the same time, I feel like that whole bit is like a bit too long. But yeah, I like the part when Anne and Andy, they jump out of the window, and it's like their first time together, like leaving the toy room and stuff. And I love how especially their voices get gentle and whispery, not just because it's like nighttime now, but also they're both like a little bit scared. You know, Andy being scared to jump after he sang that whole song about being tough and whatever. And then Anne, she makes this little oof noise when she lands in the ground, because it's like a long fall. And I like that because they're rag dolls and stuff, you know, they don't have bones or anything. Their bodies just kind of fold in on themselves when they fall. But Anne's little oof noise kind of sounds like the Roblox oof noise. It's said in the same way, and it was really funny to me. But yeah, they can't, you know, obviously break bones or anything, so they end up being fine, but they still kind of, I think, hurt a little or something. I think that's kind of interesting, especially because with them being like cloth little rag dolls, you know, yeah, you can move them around, and Marcella carries Raggedy Ann by one hand or sometimes tosses her by the hair or something. But at the same time, because they're so soft, you know, if they get like poked by a tree or something, they like also can break a bit more easily. So I find that kind of balance sort of interesting. And then I like visual wise when they're in the forest in nighttime, which is funny to me because I think it's not even like by the time you see the end where it reveals where they actually are and how far they actually have made it, I think it's just straight up like shrubs or something and not like an actual forest or trees or anything. It just looks that way to them, I think, because you know, they're tiny and stuff. But the nighttime for them, I think, is really interesting because it's not blue, it's not black like sometimes it is, like it'll get really dark, but instead all the shadows and just the visuals of everything are actually just brown, where there's like light from the moon kind of poking through the trees. I feel like I don't really see that a lot in like animated depictions of nighttime. I feel like it's usually one of the other two colors, but the brown was kind of interesting to me, actually. But then you get the song Candy Hearts and Paper Flowers. I absolutely adore that song. It's so sweet. And I think it's the only duet that Anne and Andy have. Like, it's 90% Andy, but Anne also has, like, parts of it and stuff. And I think vocally it's my favorite song. Not just in general with the movie, but with the two characters. And then I like how during the song they're, like, climbing around on trees and hiding from shadows, and the trees are actually framing them. I thought was kind of cool. There's this one part when they stop singing and they're, like, talking, but it's still during the song. I never noticed that, like, Anne, she's telling Andy, like, yeah, we're gonna be okay as long as we have each other. And Andy gives, like, the smallest little giggle. It's, like, so quiet that it kind of, I don't know if it's, like, true or not, gave the impression of, like, the actor probably just kind of laughed a little rather than, like, a thing as part of the script. I mean, maybe it was or something, but it was like so soft. It's like barely audible, and that was just kind of funny to me. And then they sing together on the final note. That was really nice. It's just a really sweet song. I think part of the other thing that makes the hold on, I have to actually Google this. I want to make sure I'm giving the right information because I'm curious. 1 second. Okay, so Joe Raposo, he did the music and stuff for this movie. I was thinking throughout the movie, I was like, these songs sound so just really sweet, and like the way the instrumentals sound, especially, almost feels like songs for children in a sense. And the guy that did the music, he's known for writing the music for Sesame Street, including a bunch of really well-known songs, like the title song and the song Sing. I like that song. Sometimes I hear it covered by like different artists and stuff. I really like the Carpenters version of that song especially. But yeah, it's like knowing that and thinking back to the movies, I feel like I had to look that up because I was just thinking about it throughout the whole movie of like, it not like, it reminds me of Sesame Street, but like, I think kinda that it makes the songs seem like it makes the songs feel like they make more sense. Apparently he did music for other stuff too, actually. I'm getting a little distracted. There's a Dr. Seuss movie from the 80s, Pontefiel Rock, Where Are You? I have never heard of that. But you know what? That looks cool. Maybe I'll watch that next. But yeah, that I feel like that kind of explains the songs in these. But the songs are really good too, but they just have that sort of vibe. I'm glad I was able to confirm that. Oh, other thing about this movie, while I was Googling it, and I'll go back to talking about it, there was like a little eBay ad that popped up for a VHS copy of this movie. It's $99. It's really expensive to buy the VHS, apparently. I didn't know that. Damn. Because I actually do still have my my VHS player. It makes me wonder if the movie got more popular after people were looking into it on the internet. Actually, there's a pre-owned copy that's like $40. I am considering. Anyway, then they end up meeting the camel. I like the camel. I find him as a sad character though, because he has these hallucinations in the sky of these other camels and wanting to join them and stuff, where they're pointing upwards towards the sky, and he gets into these sort of fits in a way of like he tries to go towards them even if he puts himself in danger. Like the reason they end up meeting the greedy is because the camel tells the characters like, yeah, come right on my back, let's go. But he's chasing the hallucinations and he goes too fast and he like goes off of a cliff. And the camel talking about how like he had an owner, and the owner was really nice, but the kid's mom, I think, tossed him out, and just the wear and tear of the camel over the years. And he mentions when he's chasing the hallucinations at one point about searching for happiness all my life. I was thinking like, oh, is him trying to follow the hallucinations and joining the camels in the sky, basically like referring to death and stuff, which makes the ending of the movie nice when he ends up joining the toys and gets really happy about that. Yeah, there is some like dark stuff with this movie, I think, like theme wise as well. I don't mean in a way of like, oh, it's so weirdly dark for a kid's movie or anything, but I just kind of forgot about some of that stuff because I was so used to, in my memory, of only watching like the playroom segments. But the camel has a song, and that's like, I mean, not the last song in the movie, but like the last one where it's like, oh, a song I remember and really like and like would listen to, you know, when I'm like doing stuff and not watching the movie. But yeah, the camel is a song, Blue. I think that one is also in the musical from what I remember. But the banjo in it kind of reminds me Animal Crossing, I know for sure in City Folk because I played that song all the time. I mean, not that song, that game all the time as a kid. But I think it's also in Wild World. Like the main theme for those two, it starts out with a couple of notes, like an intro on a banjo, and it sounds kind of similar to how the banjo sounds in the song Blue. And I don't just mean that they're the same instrument, it just sounds kind of similar to me. But I feel like Blue is the song that sounds a little bit, I think probably this one and I Look and What Do I See, like the most that sound like they'd be in Sesame Street. But it's just like good as a song and stuff. And I really like the visuals in that song as well. The effect of the stars looking really bright and just how blue the forest ends up becoming when they find the camel. But I like that Anne and Andy, they end up befriending the camel immediately, both of them too. Because like up until this point, it feels like the only person that Andy cares about is Anne, but it's nice when they meet the camel, they both become his friend and stuff, even at the end too. It's really sweet. I mean, not again that he's like mean to the other characters, like he's actually kind of friendly with Babette and trying to welcome her to the toy room until she starts saying about how much she wants to go home and how she hates the toy room. I noticed that Andy kind of starts getting a little more frowny and is just kind of like, oh brother, about Babette wanting to go home and stuff, which is just kind of funny to me. But then you get to meet the Greedy, and he is like the biggest like animation flex of this entire movie. He is a sentient piece of taffy that is covered in candy, and the thing is he is constantly moving, and because he's made of like taffy, he's like very liquidy. It's like having sentient water basically. You can imagine the way it moves. But even though he's made out of candy and you think like yum, there's something kind of gross about him too. He has like a really big pig nose, and he's constantly making eating sounds. Like he's not like burping or anything crazy. He is always like trying to at least be a little polite of like, oh excuse me or whatever, like trying to grab the candy. But it's like the way that he's constantly eating, and he's eating parts of himself too, it just kind of grosses me out. Like that's the way they end up defeating him anyway. They get him to actually consume himself. And then he has a song about wanting a candy, like a sweetheart, and I like how you could interpret it as like an actual person or just more candy to satisfy his sweet tooth. But it's kind of a song about like feeling empty and then constantly eating and stuff. I felt kind of bad for him than anything. And the thing is with the Candy Hearts and Paper Flowers songs, I thought Candy Hearts was in there as like a, that just sounds like something kind of sweet, kind of like that phrase of like sugar, spice, and everything nice. Sounds like it would just fit in with the song. But then the reason they end up kind of pissing off the Greedy a little bit is, or not really like pissing off, it's more like they get his attention, I should say. They don't really make it, they do make him a little angry. Is Raggedy Ann mentions about having a candy heart, and that's why she's so sweet. So I didn't think that was like a literal thing, and then he wants to like cut out her heart. And then he eats himself. And then from there, I kind of, like, I'd forgotten a little bit about the Greedy, so he was kind of a nice surprise. But then from there, I did actually legitimately forget everything else with the movie, because the rest of it I've only seen once. So I have less notes with that point. And we get to meet some interesting characters. There's a character, next person they meet is called the Loony Knight. He's also on the that's the nice thing with this poster is like, I think pretty much almost everyone is on there. Yeah, everyone is on there, so I can just refer to someone and you get to see what they look like. But yeah, there's a Loony Knight, and he takes them to Loony Land where there's all these like pranks and stuff. There's something about the Loony Knight, I think because he sounds like Mung Daal from Chowder, but just kind of his design and voice in general. He absolutely seems like a character to me that would like be in the show Chowder. I think just also design wise as well, it was that's just kind of was actually distracting to me than anything. Kind of made me want to go watch Chowder. It's a fun show. But they go to Loony Land, and there's a segment of it that's really cool where they go inside of a checkered room where everything turns black and white, and anytime the characters try to speak, there's like all these weird noises that come out of their mouth, and there's like this really cool like ragtime piano music in the background. I really like how the camera moves. I think it's a really fun segment where it almost feels like a silent film, where they're like circling down on these stairs and running around and stuff. It's funny because there is, I think, like a checkered room as well, in The Thief and the Cobbler and stuff that reminded me of this, and I kind of got the two of them mistaken, and I was like, here we go, animation flex more. I mean, the one in this movie is good, but like the one in Thief and the Cobbler gets like even more insane. And then there's this king character, and his deal is that he's short. I was wondering if he was supposed to be a toy as well, because he like has the ability to get bigger and inflate and stuff, and that just seemed like his design. I didn't really care about him. He's, I guess, like the closest thing this movie has to a villain. And then it sort of becomes the ending, actually, which I feel like happens kind of fast. Like, they meet these two characters, and then it's like, okay, they're out on the ocean. Which is funny because like you get to see at the end of the movie, it's actually just like a small pond in front of, not even like a pond, like a duck pond, but just like barely any water that they're in. And for the characters, it's like an entire ocean. That's why there's like water in the background on this poster. And then Babette, you know, they think she's kidnapped and in danger. And it's funny to me, you find out that she actually took over the pirate crew and she wants to go back to France. And the actual pirate captain, he ends up trapped again, because he was trapped in the beginning of the movie for like, I don't know, 37 years or something, I think is what they say, inside of a snow globe. But now he's like taken prisoner in his own ship, and he gets a little song. I remember when I first watched the movie, I was just like, okay, this character gets another song, and it's like a short little song. I didn't really care about it, but I kind of like it now. It's like this short little friendship song. It has like very, very simple lyrics, but it feels, I think, musically more in line with the type of songs from like the beginning of the movie, so that was kind of nice. And I mean, I do still feel like there's too many songs in this movie, but I am glad at least that the characters that get full-length songs, you know, are like the really important ones, like Babette or Raggedy Ann and Andy, or like the Greedy gets one as well, and some of the other less important characters get like a bit shorter songs. But I also feel like not every character needs a song. But yeah, where did Babette, she has a pirate outfit that conveniently is her size and gets like a whip, and I'm like, where the heck did she get all this stuff from? And then there's other detail I didn't notice where the captain, he sneezes a lot, the like actual pirate captain, because he's, you know, spent his entire life in a snow globe. But Babette, she wasn't ever sneezing until she ends up taking his place, not in the globe, but like when they're out on the open seas, she suddenly like starts sneezing and stuff. I was kind of wondering what that was all about, unless it's supposed to be like to make her and the pirate captain seem more similar and such. And then the ending's kind of weird, where like the tiny king shows up and he has like a kraken that's a friend of his or something, and you think, okay, the kraken's going to attack the ship, maybe they're going to have to find a way to like fight it off. No, it just ends up tickling all of the characters, and the king character, he gets inflated like a balloon, and then he ends up getting popped and presumably dies. You don't see him again once it's like the real world segment, so I'm assuming that he just dies. Let me pause for a sec. 1 second. Okay, I was responding to a friend on Discord about something. Anyway, yeah, the tiny king character, he doesn't deflate, he actually gets, you know, popped. So yeah, I'm assuming he dies. Anyway, then there's this really cool transition where when he gets popped, the screen flashes, and Andy and Anne and the camel. Oh yeah, he's officially called the camel with the wrinkled knees. They never call him that. Like, Anne and Andy will be like, this is our friend the camel, and then the camel will say, with the wrinkled knees, and that's just kind of funny to me. But they fall through this like dark spiral or whatever. I thought that was pretty cool. I think I did a drawing of it a while ago. And then it shows Marcella, and she's like, how did you guys get here? And it shows all the actual characters, and it's funny to me because they're all just because I guess this movie takes place during fall, because there's like leaves on the ground and stuff, where it shows that the water, the big ocean that they were in is actually just like this like really tiny little like pond thing or whatever. like it's big enough where like Marcella has to wear rain boots, but it doesn't go like past her boots or anything. And that the forest they were in, you can guess, is probably just like the bushes that were in the front. So they didn't even leave like her front yard or anything. They didn't actually go very far. Like, it seems like they went on like a long journey, but they actually didn't. So I like that kind of reality check at the end. Though it just make me wonder for places like Looney Land or when they're with the greedy, like, were those real either, or was it just like, oh, they stepped on some taffy on the ground or something? But you don't see if the other characters are toys or anything. You only see the toy forms of the ones you already know are toys, like Babette and the captain that's inside of the snow globe and stuff. But it's kind of funny to see the characters laid out, but it also made me think, oh no, because like Babette seems like she's really like fancy quality and she's just out there. She's not like dirty or anything. None of the characters, surprisingly, they're not dirty or wet. They're just kind of laid out there. But I like the different shots showing where they ended up. Like, Andy is covered just a little bit. He's like kind of tucked into some leaves. But that's the point when Marcella picks him up and she doesn't even say anything. But she's like, oh no, Anne and Babette and Captain, your boat. But there's like no comment for Andy. And I'm like, okay. But then I felt bad for the camel. I mean, Marcella's also never seen him before or anything. But he's buried under the leaves with just his head poking out, but she probably would have grabbed him, but she like didn't see him. And then it cuts to nighttime and he's still out there in like the real form, and then he changes back. And I think it's interesting that he sees his hallucination, and instead of pointing towards the sky, because the camels in the sky, they're singing about like home and stuff, it's pointing to Marcella's bedroom window instead of like, this is his new home now. But then before that ends up happening, I forgot there's like a little scene with Babette where she actually ends up apologizing for all the trouble she caused, which is really nice. And she wants to be Anne's friend, and she ends up with like the captain and stuff. But I like that Andy points out of like, hey, she caused us a lot of issues and everything, you know, she's the reason we went on this whole adventure, which is true, you know. She put them through a lot. I mean, it wasn't her fault though. It's not like she ran away to France. It was, I mean, that is what she was trying to do by the end once she becomes the pirate captain. But, you know, originally she's just kidnapped. But, you know, they're going out there to rescue her for her sake. But it works out with everybody. I like that when Babette ends up giving Anne a hug, Anne kind of tucks herself under all of Babette's curls. But then she gets to sing a song, Anne, not Babette, about like home and stuff. I don't know if I don't think it's the same song that the camels were singing. I'm not sure. I think they both just have lyrics about home, but it's like a really sweet song. And I like that everybody in the playroom gets like a line or a verse to sing. And then they end up letting the camel in through the window. And I'm glad the movie ends with the acceptance of the camel, because that's kind of like the one little loose end in a sack of like, oh, everyone made it home, but the camel still doesn't have an owner. But they let the camel in, and the siblings, they absolutely love the camel. It's really sweet, and they all sing like candy hearts and paper flowers, and then it ends with Marcella. I like that she comes into the room. She doesn't have anything to say, actually, which I think makes the scene better. She sees the camel, and she's like, you know, a little confused. But she picks him up and she kind of looks at him like, what is this thing? And kind of wobbles him around, and then she hugs him, and she hugs the other two characters, the ragdolls, and that's where the movie ends. But I think that's just like a perfect little ending, honestly, of the camel, you know, gets accepted, especially because Raggedy Ann, I think earlier in the movie, says like, you should come home with us, Marcella will love you and everything, which is true. It kind of reminds me of what is it, I think like, was it Toy Story 2 or Toy Story 3? You know, when like, you know, Woody and Buzz, they'll like go on these adventures and they'll gain new toy friends, and then the toys end up, you know, Andy ends up with these new toys and he doesn't know where they came from, or Bonnie or whatever. and it's just like, oh cool, I have a new toy. That probably is how it is for the kids, where it's like, I mean, the toys and the audience know, like, yeah, this is their new friend that comes with. But I like with these kind of movies where it's like the kid isn't sure why there's suddenly a new toy here that they've never seen before, but they accept them anyway and becomes part of their toy lineup. So I think that's kind of sweet. It is kind of funny though, of like, this movie does share those kind of similarities with like the Toy Story movies. I think especially with like the first, this is the first Toy Story, yeah, of like having to, I mean, I think it's kind of the similar plot where, like, you know, Buzz and Woody, they end up out the window, and Buzz is like the new birthday present toy and stuff, and they end up out the window, and it's about them having to go back to the house and stuff. Even though this movie was made like way before Toy Story. That's the thing that's funny to me. I kept forgetting in a way, you know, I'm so used to not that Toy Story is the only movie about like sentient toys that have to like freeze when there's humans around or anything, but it's more so, you know, that's the one I always think of. But yeah, this one came first. But yeah, this is a really sweet movie. I think I read that it even came out like the same weekend as like the first Star Wars movie or something, which, you know, Star Wars, the original ones and stuff, they're great. I understand they, you know, probably got like super popular and stuff, but that makes me a little sad because this movie is also so well made, and I feel like it probably, I mean, I don't know, I'm just assuming, probably didn't get the attention it deserved back then when it came out. And it makes me wonder, you know, if it didn't come out the same weekend as Star Wars. And that's nothing against this movie. I feel like any movie that probably would have come out within that same weekend, Star Wars probably dominated the box office and everything. But, you know, it makes me wish that, like, if this one came out at, like, a different time, you know, even within that same year, if it probably would have done better. Because I had, like, never heard about this movie. I mean, then again, I hadn't heard of The Thief and the Cobbler either, but that's probably, well, not as known as, like, this. Like, I only knew about Richard Williams because of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which I also want to do a review on. I'd love to rewatch that movie. But yeah, I never heard about this until it just popped up on YouTube. Not even the movie or a video, but like an essay about it or anything. It was literally just like someone made a video about all the times Babette appears in the movie, and I was like, oh, okay, let me check this out. But like once I watched it for the first time, I just could not get it out of my head for like 2 weeks. It was great. But yeah, it's a good movie. You should watch it. What else? I'm happy to talk about it again. I don't know if I'll watch the musical again. I don't think I'll talk about it, Ragdolly, but it's good. Maybe eventually I'll rewatch it or change my mind. I just wanted to specifically talk about this movie because, you know, I made the Poggedy Ann me, and I was like, okay, I have to talk about her origins. But Anne's voice is now kind of in my head a little bit more, so I think I kind of adjust the voice of the me. I think the personality, I think I made her like a considerate sweetie or something. I think I got that right, actually, because Anne in this movie really is an absolute sweetheart. I don't know if I'll make Andy as well. The thing is with Anne, she's specifically what I referred to as Poggedy Ann because of the facial expression and stuff, but there's no equivalent in this movie for that for Andy. Unless I did change the Poggedy Ann me and just make like a normal Raggedy Andy as well. I don't know, maybe if you guys would want that, I'll do it with the me's. Otherwise I'll leave the Raggedy Ann me alone. But yeah, fun movie, nice to see again. It really has just become like a comfort movie for me. I'd love if you have recommendations for more movies that have like a similar vibe like this, even if it's like older ones like this, that would be great. I for sure want to rewatch The Thief and the Cobbler at some point. I would love to finally be able to make a video about it. And then, like I mentioned, there's a Dr. Seuss thing I found out about while I was, you know, talking that I've never heard of this story. Pontefiel Rock, Where Are You? Because it is a movie. I don't know if it's like a book as well. Like the art style of it, I mean, it's Dr. Seuss, looks cool, and I'm kind of curious about the movie now. looks like it might be on like YouTube or Internet Archive or something. So maybe I'll check that out too. But yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.